In September 1988, DC Comics gave 10,000 readers a phone number and asked them to decide whether a 15-year-old boy lived or died. 6 months earlier, the same company shot a librarian through the spine to upset her father. Everyone knows this one. It is the Robin who does not come back. In 2004, they burned a hero's wife to hide how she had died. 6 people, and not one of them led the book they died in. A man with a handgun, somebody posted to him, and 30 seconds left. DC did that one twice inside a single 7-issue story. Her photographs were enlarged and hung in a funhouse for her father to walk past. The crowbar gets 7 panels on one page. His mother gets 3 and looks away in all of them. Superhero comics kill supporting characters constantly, and most of those deaths are ordinary. A story finishes, a writer leaves, a book gets canceled. The 6 on this list are not that. Every one of them was destroyed while their own story was still running, because a more famous person needed to be seen carrying it. And the strange part, the part that made this video worth making, is how often the comic admits it in the dialogue. 6 heroes lift that coffin, and the caption over them says, "Like a team." Hold on to that word, because the team is the reason she is inside it. So here is the promise. By the end, you will be able to read 6 of DC's most notorious deaths the way they were actually built, as messages, with a named recipient printed on the page. You will know which panel names the target out loud, and which one is only guessing. You will get a rank order you are welcome to disagree with, and I will defend the awkward ones as we go. And you will know the one entry where the honest answer is nobody, which turns out to be the entry that proves the whole pattern is real. The number to hold on to is 72. It is not a page count, and it is not a body count. It is a margin, and at number 1, I will tell you what it decided. One more thing before the countdown, and it is a rule rather than a rank. Batman is not on this list. He is what the list is measured against. The most famous man in the building, the one these messages keep getting addressed to, and the only person in this video who walks out of every entry intact. Everyone else forms teams and goes hunting, and somebody has to check that he is accounted for, because he never is. While the rest of the league tears the world apart hunting a killer, the world's greatest detective is at home running tests. And he is fine. He is always fine. That is the job. He walks into her tent and greets her by name, like a rep dropping in on an account. One villain accounts for 2 of the 6. You already know the version of him you have been sold. Chaos. No motive. No plan. The joke being that there is no joke. So watch what he is actually doing the first time he turns up in this video. He is in an Ethiopian famine camp, blackmailing the doctor who controls medical distribution for the region. He is not there for a punchline. He is there because she signs for the trucks, not for laughs, for inventory. Number 6 is Alexandra DeWitt, and the only reason you have ever heard her name is what was done to her. If you know Green Lantern from the films, you know Hal Jordan. This is the other one, a graphic designer called Kyle Rayner, who had the ring for about a year. So who was she before the refrigerator? A photojournalist, recently back with a boyfriend she had already walked out on once, and cautiously willing to believe it might work this time. Her whole function in the issue is to believe in him out loud. She is the one who tells him the ring suits him. 4 pages. And the comic has handed you everything it ever intends to give you about her, because 2 pages later, a man in a suit spreads her file across a table. Her name, her job, the address of her apartment. What that file cannot give them is the man they actually want. So on this panel, she stops being a person and becomes a route to one. The briefing is handed over in a private jet, which is worth noticing. This is not a lunatic with a knife. It is a procurement exercise. The last instruction concerns how much pain has been authorized, and the answer is, as much as he likes. Then the book does something crueler than the murder itself. Flowers arrive. She assumes they are from him. The card is not. Her boyfriend paid for those flowers. The killer used them as stationery, so she spends the last hour of her life believing she has been sent a threat by somebody who does not exist in a city that has begun to shake. Every question she is then asked is about somebody else, who he is, where he is, what the ring does. 2 miles away, her boyfriend is asking himself how anybody is supposed to stop an earthquake. She is beaten for information she does not have about a man whose name she never gives up. And when the killer decides she has nothing useful to say, he calls her expendable, which in this book is a job description rather than an insult. And here is where I have to say plainly what happens, because softening it would be its own kind of insult. She is strangled on a kitchen floor by a man who has already been told she is disposable. Meanwhile, Kyle Rayner is holding an entire city together through that earthquake, which is the sort of thing this comic was actually supposed to be about. The issue cuts between them deliberately. He saves several hundred strangers. She dies in his kitchen. The timing is the argument. He comes home wanting the surprise she promised him. There is a note on the table in handwriting that is not quite hers. He notices that it is not quite hers and opens the fridge anyway. 1994, and no reader on Earth yet had a word for what they had just been shown. They have one now, and it came from this panel. So the killer steps out from behind him to take the credit, because a message nobody attributes is wasted work. His only comment on the woman he has just killed is that she would not talk about her boyfriend, which he offers as a compliment. He does not gloat about her. He does not even use her name. He asks for the ring, which tells you exactly what she was for. 5 years later, a writer called Gail Simone began cataloging women killed to move a man's story forward, and named the entire list after this refrigerator. Ron Mars has since said plainly that he invented her in order to kill her, so that his new hero's loss would mean something, which is honest, and which is also the charge sheet in one sentence. She is only at number 6 because the man she was aimed at never learned it. The man at number 5 worked it out with days to spare and had to leave his own last message with a stranger. Before number 5, subscribe, because from here on, the deaths stop being sloppy and start being administrative. Number 5 is Ted Kord, and to make his death land, you need one fact about a man who is not in the room when it happens. You might remember Blue Beetle and Booster Gold as a joke. That is fair. They were written as one, and they were very good at it. They were the two rookies in a Justice League that also contained Batman, Captain Marvel, and the Martian Manhunter, and they were best friends for 20 years of publication. Kord's own narration admits they played down what they could actually do, because nobody expected much of them, and that was easier, which is why the scene that sets up his death is not a fight. It is his friend caught taking $300 out of his account. Booster does not apologize. He says he is tired of asking for help, which is the closest thing to a motive anybody in this issue has. So the millionaire hands it back, asks him to go easy on it, and lets him keep the card. Then he mentions, almost in passing, that somebody has been laundering money through his company, and he cannot work out who. It is Booster who suggests they take it to a man who understands hostile takeovers, which is how a comedy double act walks into a spy thriller. Because the real subject of this comic is not a conspiracy. It is a man finding out how few people are obliged to take his call. The League broadcasts a general emergency to all active members while he is standing in the room, and the caption tells you flatly that he is not on the list. So he teleports home, and the book gives you an inventory rather than a scene. His company has been emptied out. His house has been destroyed. His best friend is in intensive care, and the energy blast that put Booster there was aimed at him. He is 40-something, bankrupt, and sitting in the wreckage deciding whether being a hero was ever the easy job he assumed it was when he was a boy, which is the fact that turns this from a murder into a message, because the inventor works it out before anybody else does. He makes a nurse promise to pass something on. The message is that none of it was Booster's fault, and that he was told so by name. Then he adds that he never had a better friend, which is a sentence you only say when you have already decided you are not coming back. So entry 5 is the cleanest evidence in this video. The dying man writes the message himself, names the recipient himself, and hands it to a stranger for delivery. And look at what the same caption box admits on the way out. He calls Oracle and gets nothing. He calls the Watchtower. Batman puts him on hold, and he hangs up first to save him the trouble. He traces the signal through a relay in Belgium to a castle in the Swiss Alps. Then he goes in alone, in a 30-year-old aircraft he had to dig out of storage, and spares a prayer for the friend in the hospital before he does it. What he finds inside is Maxwell Lord, whose cover identity for 2 decades had been running the Justice League, and who had kept it ineffective on purpose the entire time. Lord offers him a job, which is the most humiliating beat in the issue. The villain rates him higher than his own side does. His pitch is that the world's destiny belongs in human hands, rather than in the hands of things pretending to be human, and he means every word of it. He refuses in 4 words and is shot in the head on panel. There is no last stand. There is no reversal. nobody comes. The killer's verdict on 20 years of publication is 2 words long, and then the comic gets straight on with launching the crossover it was built to launch, which is the trade in its purest form. A character spent an alarm bell, so the important people would finally look up. He is above DeWitt because he chose his own last sentence and knew who it was for. The man at number 4 never finished his, and the words he did manage are almost exactly the same words. Number 4 is Jack Drake, and he is on this list because the thing that killed him was an attempt to protect him. His killer was hired through a middleman called the Calculator, who sells information to villains the way Oracle gives it to heroes, and who is described in this very issue as Oracle without the morals. Meanwhile, in a wood somewhere, Captain Boomerang is teaching his own son to throw. It is the only warm scene the man gets in 40 years of appearances. An aging criminal telling a boy to trust his dad, and the weapon he is demonstrating is the one he will put in Jack Drake's chest about 9 pages later. Back in Gotham, Tim Drake is begging his father not to open the front door to anybody, because Sue Dibny has been murdered and Jean Loring has been attacked, both inside their own homes, and the boy has done the arithmetic. His father asks him who was threatened. He will not say, because the secret is not his to give away. Then he leaves anyway, which is the decision the rest of this entry is about. And here is the part I want established before anything gets taken away. This father is not a hostage or a plot device yet. He is a man who found out last week that his 16-year-old goes out at night in a cape. He says the obvious thing, which is that a 16-year-old should not be doing this. His son asks him whether sitting at home watching it on the news would really be better, and then he tells him to go anyway. The last complete sentence Jack Drake says to his son is that he is proud of him. So when a package turns up in the kitchen a minute later, it reaches a man who has just talked himself into being brave. Inside it are a handgun and a note reading "Protect yourself," with no name on either. He gets down behind the kitchen counter with both of them. Then he calls the Justice League switchboard to report that his life might be in danger, reaches Barbara Gordon, and stays on the line. Which is why this death happens with an audience. Batman and Robin are already airborne when the intruder reaches the door. Nobody in that cockpit says anything for 2 panels, because there is nothing either of them can do at that speed. The father's last request down the phone is not for himself, and Batman's response to it is 2 words, spoken into a cowl in a comic that has already buried one Robin. Not again. His son is still promising him out loud that they are going to make it. Now look at what Brad Meltzer builds on the next page, because it is the best piece of craft in this rank. 2 fathers are speaking to 2 sons in the same panel grid at the same moment. One is on a telephone. One is on an answering machine. One tells his boy that none of this is his fault. The other tells his boy that tonight he is finally going to make him proud. Neither son is in the room. Both of them hear it happen. Both men die within 3 pages. Nobody wins the fight. Nobody arrives in time. The last image of the chapter is the 2 of them side by side on the carpet, the hired killer and the man who shot him. They share one spreading pool of blood, which is the writer telling you they were interchangeable to whoever paid the invoice. So who was that message for? 2 fathers, 2 sons, 1 invoice. Tim Drake got the words, and Batman got the meaning, which is 2 recipients, and still more than the murder at number 3, where the honest answer is nobody at all. Number 3 is Sue Dibny, and she is the reason this list exists, rather than an exception to it. Everyone remembers Identity Crisis for what the Justice League turned out to have done. Almost nobody remembers who died first. That is page 1. The comic states its own rule before it kills anybody, and then spends 6 issues enforcing it. Ralph Dibny explains that in a novel, you start worrying about the main character straight away, and that the worry is false, because nothing bad ever really happens to a main character. Then he says, but if the story opens with a minor character or 2, and the book knows exactly what it is about to do to her, because it has her husband say it out loud a few pages later, Sue is a target. Anyone who puts on a costume, he says, paints a bullseye on his own family. Their apartment carries Thanagarian, Martian, and Kryptonian security, plus whatever Steel could strip out of a mother box. He is not being paranoid, and the book does not treat him as though he is. He has been thinking about it every day for 20 years. She had watched her husband's reflection in a shop window in Belgium to work out what he wanted, which is the sort of detail that exists in a comic for exactly one reason. On the last afternoon of her life, she is on the phone to Alfred, who has helped her track down a birthday present, which is what makes the next 4 minutes unbearable rather than merely shocking. This is the last complete scene the character gets, so the book spends it on her being pleased with herself. She is wrapping the present. She hears something upstairs. She calls out, and the name she guesses is Ollie, because Green Arrow is supposed to be hiding in her flat to jump out of a cake. The caption under the last panel of her life is her thinking that even Sherlock Holmes would not guess what she has hidden in the box. So she walks towards her killer expecting a party. What her husband finds is a body and a fire, and the League will spend 2 issues proving the fire came after the death to disguise how it was done. He cannot carry her out himself because the woman who flew him home has flames instead of hands. The last object in the sequence is the present she bought him, smashed on the floor. He stretches across a city to reach her, and the caption says he is not fast enough, which for a man who can be anywhere is the cruelest line in the book. And lying in the rain beside her is a positive pregnancy test, which is the writer confirming the loss is permanent and then quietly adding to it. Now the part everybody gets wrong. The autopsy proves the burning was staged, and 2 issues from the end the killer is revealed as Jean Loring, the Adams' ex-wife, who got in by shrinking to 6 inches. She did it to frighten the heroes into holding their loved ones closer, so that one specific man would come home to her. Sue Dibny was not aimed at anybody, and yet for 6 issues, every hero in the book is certain it is leverage, and they tear the world apart on that assumption. 5 of them meet in a private chapel behind the funeral, and the first thing they establish is that they are not going to tell the others. They do not investigate first. They go straight to a name they have been protecting for 20 years, because they did something to somebody once, and they are certain the bill has come due. Ralph Dibny, the detective, the man who noticed a shop name in a reflection, does not solve it either. He is the one shouting a suspect's name. That is why she is at number 3 rather than off the list altogether. The murder names nobody, and every professional detective in the story assumes it must name somebody, because on the evidence of the other 5 entries, that is exactly how their world works. So what does it look like when a writer aims one on purpose? Number 2 is Barbara Gordon, and this is the entry where the comic stops implying and starts stating. You have seen this cover even if you have never read the book. What is inside it began as a favor. The artist was asked what he wanted to draw next, and said the Joker. The Killing Joke then gives her 4 panels of life before it takes the rest. She has made her father Coco. She is teasing him about his filing and offering to organize his press clippings properly, the way she used to at the library. It is small, warm, and extremely specific, and Alan Moore writes it that way on purpose, because it is about to be used as a lever. Then the doorbell goes, and she answers it because she is expecting a neighbor for a yoga class. There is a man on the step in a Hawaiian shirt with a gun and a camera. He shoots her through the spine. She goes backwards through a glass table in front of her father, and that is the end of her participation in this story. 6 panels, and the rest of the book is about 2 men, because look at who he talks to next, not her. He stands over her running a series of jokes about damaged book spines, and every one of them is addressed to the man in the chair. Then he explains to her, directly, why he is taking photographs, so that her father will have something to remember her by. She asks him why he is doing this. It is the only question she gets to ask in the entire book. And the answer is that he is proving a point, not hurting her. Proving a point to 2 men using her. The prognosis is delivered in a hospital corridor and not to her either. A detective has to explain to Batman that her clothes were removed after she was shot and that pictures were taken. He apologizes for assuming Batman already knew, which is a small and appalling piece of writing, because it means the news traveled between men before it reached anyone who loved her. And the thing Batman is handed at the end of that conversation is a playing card, because the sender wanted the delivery confirmed. So, the archetype, the version of this villain you have been sold, does not plan, does not target, and kills at random for the joke. This one bought a derelict funfair, kidnapped a police commissioner, stripped him, caged him, and hung enlargements of those photographs along a ghost train so a father would ride past his daughter's worst night at 4 miles an hour. And the man it was aimed at survives it with one demand, which is that the arrest be made properly by the book. That is not chaos. That is a production with a budget, a venue, and a running order. He even says it out loud. It does not matter whether he is caught, because the point has been proved, and it is not. Batman's first act on reaching him is to tell him that Gordon came out of that cage exactly as sane as he went in, which means the shooting, the spine, the photographs, and the funfair bought their author precisely nothing. He is told, in the plainest words in the book, that maybe it was only ever him. Now the fair part, and it matters. Barbara Gordon got the best second act anybody on this list got. 17 years later, she is Oracle, and she is the person every hero in DC phones first. Ted Kord builds equipment for her. Ted Kord is at number 5 partly because she is the one who will not take his call. But that is a different comic, made by different people, 2 decades downstream. In this one, she is a lever, and it ends with 2 men laughing at a joke she is not in. She is at number 2 because her destruction was designed, staged, and addressed to 2 named men. Only one entry beats that, and it is the one nobody inside the comic aimed at all. Number 1 is Jason Todd, and the reason he is number 1 is not the crowbar. As you may recall, Batman has had several Robins. This is the reason there is a numbering system. Start with what the villain is actually doing in this issue, because it demolishes the version of him you have been sold. He is blackmailing a famine relief doctor to steal 6 truckloads of medical supplies. He has already lined up his black market buyers, which means he did the sales before he did the theft. He states his own motive in one line, and it is not a philosophy. It is a cash flow problem. He needs a stake to get back in the game because he lives in a world that runs on money. That is a man with a business plan, a deadline, and a margin. The boy walks into that operation because his mother told him to. She had been embezzling the medical funds herself, and she hands over her own son rather than let an investigation find her. And when the man in the purple coat is asked what to do with him, the answer is that this is something he has wanted to do for years. He punches him once first, which the artist gives a whole panel to because everything after it is going to need a running start. Not something he needs, something he wants. Which brings us to the argument this whole video has been making, and the single entry where it breaks. So I am going to break it honestly. Afterwards, the mother asks what Batman is going to do when he finds out, and the man holding the crowbar says he had not thought of that. He had not thought of that. The most famous message on this list was never sent as a message at all. So he decides to remove the evidence instead, on the reasoning that what Batman does not know cannot hurt him. He is not signing his work here. He is covering it. He knows exactly what the man is like. He says so in the same breath and calls it his most fascinating quality. He insists on evidence before he moves. So he ties the mother to a post beside a bomb, and the only reason she is in the blast is that she watched him lose his temper. Then he gives them 10 minutes because he enjoys the idea of her counting. 20 minutes away, Batman is given a choice: chase the Jeep or go back for the boy. He picks the boy. He is 5 seconds late. Inside the building, the mother has already got her son to the exit. The last 2 panels of the issue are a face in a window and a burning field, and there is no fight, no villain, and no last words in either of them. So if the man who did it was not aiming at anybody, who was? DC was. It asked the audience. Over 2 days in the middle of September 1988, DC ran a premium rate telephone poll. 1 number for Robin to live, 1 number for Robin to die. 10,614 calls came in. He is at number 1 because he is the only person here whose killer had to be told who the death was for, and the only one where the people who decided it were not in the comic. 5,343 voted to kill him. 5,271 voted to save him. 72 votes. That is the margin, and the editor who counted them said afterwards that he had heard a rumor one caller had automated the line, which was never proved and which nobody has ever managed to rule out. DC brought the boy back 18 years later in an annual, and that does not undo this, because for 18 years, the honest answer to what happened to Robin was that the readers were asked, and they said yes. So, 4 of these 6 deaths name their recipient out loud, on the page, in dialogue. Alexandra DeWitt's killers are briefed to use her to reach the ring bearer. Ted Kord dictates his to a nurse. Jack Drake spends his last words absolving his son. The Joker photographs Barbara Gordon so that her father will have something to look at. One of them names nobody, and the fact that every detective in her book assumed otherwise is the strongest evidence in this video that the pattern is real. And the 6th was aimed by 10,000 people holding telephones, by a margin of 72. The man at that funeral could not finish a sentence about his wife, and every hero in the room watched him fail to. 2 more were cut from this list for cost rather than weakness. Sarah Essen Gordon, shot in a room full of stolen newborns, and Stephanie Brown, tortured in a book that later took it back. While Lee and Harper is the entry somebody else is going to have to run, which leaves the thing all 6 have in common, and it is not. It is that every one of these people was specific and interesting, and was then converted into weather for somebody else's grief. DC has never had trouble writing a hero. What it has never once managed is to let one of these people stay a person. Every single one of them was emptied out and handed to somebody more famous to carry. Which of the 6 would you have cut? And which one have I ranked wrong? Tell me.